The first question I think is what is the most important thing maybe that you learned today? Was there a moment that moved you? Was there a comment or question that somebody asked? It doesn't have to be something, by the way, that happened on stage at all. It could be something that somebody said in a breakout group. What was the moment? What was the question? What was the statement that you want to, that is going to stick with you and maybe that you want to bring back home? Whoever wants to go, doesn't matter.
I guess I'll go. This was a bit kind of a really unique moment for me, but it was right when I got here at about, maybe 3:45, and I walked up to the table and I sat down and I opened the pamphlet with all the biographies in it to see the name of one of my very good friends, Joe Altmeyer, who I didn't know was speaking today. And I just had this sudden feeling of, wait a second. First of all, that's fantastic. But second of all, why am I not doing something like that? Not because I want the recognition that that might bring to me, but because I could be doing more and I should be doing more. And I think that that thought has kind of stayed with me throughout this entire experience, that the life that I lead and the privilege that I have could be used and should be used, and that I need to take the opportunity to use it.
I'm not sure if you realize it or not, but I bet you a bunch of other people do. You just did. On to the next challenge. Go ahead.
Okay, for me, it was two moments. The first being when I saw Augustus up here, having been in the country for a year, and to see that he was doing something that, I've been here my whole life, and I would have never dreamed of doing, and he did it not necessarily on his own, but with his own initiative and his own plan to make sure that people like him don't go to prison for any reason that they shouldn't, and to inspire teenagers who maybe get into the wrong things to steer in a different pathway. And I think that as teenagers, we kind of lack that initiative to start important things like this and help each other out. And to see him do that, especially being from an area where there's so much need in Africa, and for him to come here and be totally selfless and commit himself to helping others was really influential to me, and that really stood out to me, as well as
Hold it.
Yeah.
That was a good one, but if it comes to you, please add it. Go ahead. What's your name again? I'm sorry.
My name is Daniel. I have my name tag.
Don't worry about it, Dan.
But
Go
it's
ahead.
upside down. So, what really stuck with me was during our breakout group, especially when Pete came in our group, and we were talking about like bullying and taking action and leadership when something's going wrong and you need to intervene in a discussion or any altercation that's happening. And he said, well, my 13-year-old daughter said she came home one night and she said she saw somebody getting bullied and she wanted to intervene, but she was afraid that she would get bullied herself. And he said, what can you do if you're afraid of being the target? And I said, you need to realize that our world will not get better without sacrifice, and you have to speak on your actions. And I think that you have to work, because the world won't get better if nobody's afraid. And if you take the first step, then people will follow suit. If you raise your hand in class, then more people around you are going to start raising your hands in class. And it's more about leadership. And if you're able to take that first step, people will always follow suit, and they always protect you, especially because people know deep down what's right, and they're always afraid. So just take your first step.
Love it. Last year, I took so many experiences away last year. I was so moved last year in the similar group. And so if I can just take a moment to say mine. Is it Cody? That's your name? Yeah. Seemed small, but I just love what you said. Not you. You're like the comment you made. This we have to stop pursuing popularity. I don't know. That resonated with me, and I hope it resonated with everybody else. Looking out for kind of the individual versus the group, where you're much more powerful. That's at least how I interpreted it, and I loved it. So that was mine. Not that I get the option to share mine. back to you guys. How is there anything today, by the way, the entire time you've been here, some of you've been here longer than others, that you feel like it's tangible that you can take back to your community and share an idea that you can lift, steal, use, and bring back a concept or a moment? Is there anything? And I know this is not hard. This is because you're all thinking, dude, this is easy. I'm putting them on the spot. They don't have these questions ahead of time. So you're thinking if there's nothing comes to mind, that's fine. But is there any technique, organization, idea that you think, hey, clearly, well, you want to do Katie's Crops, so maybe that's...
All the NOLA kids.
What do we call you? New Orleanians?
Just call us NOLA. Just say NOLA kids.
NOLA kids?
Yeah,
all right.
We're fine with that. Personally, honestly, all over Louisiana, but living in New Orleans, there's a large homeless population, and our mission is really small. So like half of the people who actually try and go to the mission actually get to go, and it's really competitive, which is sad to me. So I really it's really important to me that, especially even though I might not have that much privilege in the world, I get to go home to a warm place that has food and not have clothes, and everyone is not that privileged. So like a program like Katie's Crops being initiated in New Orleans would be really important, not to just myself, but my fellow NOLA kids as well, because I mean, it's so easy to say you want to give back, but to not do it. And I feel like Katie's Crops would be a good way for us to do that and get even more involved in the community that we love.
Awesome. Shannon?
I think, in general, the discussion of immigration was a really big thing for me.
Yeah.
Just personally, with my identity, I'm ethnically Romani. But my family was forced to leave Croatia in the 1800s. And when they eventually arrived here at America, they were forced to change their name, everybody's names, both first and last. And they lost all communication with the family. And so I feel like through that, I lost so much of my identity. And I'm only now just finding out about this entire part of my past. And so to have that knowledge of myself, but still have the privilege that I have as a very white-looking person, that I want to be able to do more with that. I want to be able to take advantage of the opportunities that are given to me to make a difference so that no family has to go through what my family had to go through.
Love it. Well said. On the spot. What about you, Daniel? Anything that you're taking back? Where are you from?
I'm from Denver.
Denver, that's right. So what is that, 4 hours?
Yeah, about.
So what do you take back to your community that you learned here? What do you share with your friends? And by the way, do you all go back to your homes, your communities, and say you should try to get involved in this program that I'm involved with? Is that hopefully it's something that you'll promote so others can have a similar experience? But go ahead.
Yeah, similar to like what Mayela was saying earlier during Augustus's panel, when he came to the country, he started taking initiative in his school. And I know a lot of us have been here and we haven't done anything remotely close to that. So what I'm really taking away is my school, we're allowed to have, I guess, communication with our faculty, and we're able to make decisions within our school, and we're able to say, oh, we like this teacher and we like these qualities, this is what they could work on, but overall, like, we want this teacher admitted into our school, and we're able to like admit faculty to teach us, because that's what our school cares about us like that. So I want you guys to try to talk to your faculty and see how you can talk to your principal or your vice principal and see if you could like raise your voice and see, oh, could I interact with the new teachers or the new applicants and see, oh, can I help them out, or could I do this, or could I do that, etc. And I really want all of you guys to try and do that and try to spread the word.
Awesome. This one's a little bit selfish for the adults in the room to hear from you, but I think it would be really interesting to get your perspective and to just see if it's shared. Not that we have time to discuss it, but maybe there's another time. What are we doing wrong, adults? What is it that we can do better?
There's so much.
Should I just leave? You could just take up the rest of the time.
You're fine.
Just
You're
take
perfect.
up the rest of the time.
There's so much, honestly. I think if we really want to change the world, I think our generation especially, I think we're going to change the world as we're going. Give us like 10 years, I feel like the United States as a whole is going to be changed. I feel everybody in our generation is so passionate, I think. As like the Parkland shooting students, they're starting to make a voice, and then that's where it's spreading. And just as much as they have a responsibility for that, we have a responsibility ourselves to raise our voice. As we've been saying this entire panel, you have a voice. And I think that you guys are doing wrong is that you guys aren't depending on us enough, and you guys aren't trusting. Yeah, that's the word. You guys aren't trusting us enough with our own ideas, because we're smart individuals. All of us are smart. All of us are intelligent individuals, and we all know how we could change the society, but adults often don't recognize this, and they don't want to ask us for our opinion or ask us for our help when we know so much and we could change the world as we know it.
Well, I'm begging for it, so what else?
And that was just as Jo was saying in her poem earlier, like, we always get told we're too young to make any changes, and that anything we do is kind of like, oh, you don't have experience, you're immature, you haven't lived on this earth long enough to know how to do this, and you live long enough, you'll learn. But it's like, with the society that we live in, we learn much earlier than our parents and our grandparents, aunts, uncles, all of our families. And I feel like, as Daniel was saying, like, be more trusting in kids, because we go through a lot. Like, even if it's not directly us, even if it's indirectly, we go through a lot of stuff. And we know how to fix it, because, I mean, we're kids, we talk to each other, we know how we feel, and no one really, I feel like adults don't necessarily value that. There are very few who are open-minded and willing to listen to what teenagers have to say, and I feel like, just put more trust in us. Like, sometimes we get a little crazy, but sometimes we know what we're talking about, and then I think it's worth at least to give us a listen than to just shut us down, because that's how you don't change. And that's how people just give up and resort to living and how they live and don't desire to do anything
Love
else.
it. Shannon, if you could talk to all the adults in the world, what would you tell them?
I think I'm gonna switch up the message a little bit. And I think I'd like to say to the adults that it's still your job too. I hear all the time, like, oh, we're handing it off to the young generation. Like, oh, look at all of the horrible things we've done to this world that now we're going to have to leave it to the younger generations to fix. But the fact is, the baby boomer generation that people are always blaming things on are still, they're still adults living in the workforce, voting, being people in the world, and that just because you screwed something up once before doesn't mean that you can just step back and leave it for literal children to clean up.
Oh, that's so good. So somebody earlier during dinner, if you call it that, asked me for advice, and I'm like, Jesus, I don't know. You're way more intelligent than I was at your age, and you're in the thick of it. I don't know what to tell you. But then I realized I did have a piece of advice, but because it came from a young person. I was interviewing a young man at the March for Our Lives protest, and I tried to just kind of ask a difficult question, trying to play devil's advocate with this kid. He maybe was 17, and I was judging him. I was like, in my mind, I looked at this kid, and I was like, this kid's a nerdy idealist who is just like taking on this gun issue because that's become his identity, and it brings him self-confidence. And that was the shitty monologue, judgmental monologue in my head. But this is the question I said to him to give him the opportunity to maybe debunk that. I said, what do you say, said this to this young kid, what do you say to adults who tell you on this gun issue, nothing's going to change? We've been trying to change gun laws in this country for really, literally 2 generations at least, and we barely make any difference. What do you say to an adult that says, it's not, you're wasting your time? And this kid looked me straight through my soul, and he took a beat, and with all the confidence I've ever seen any person at any age have, he said, watch me. And I, for the first time in a long time, was speechless. And so that's how I feel watching you guys today. I'm watching you. We're watching you. And we're inspired by you. Thank you. Thank you guys all very much.